The first $100,000 is not just hard, it is psychologically designed to feel completely pointless. The financial services industry has spent decades propagating a very sterilized, optimistic narrative. They tell you to just start investing $200 a month, let the magic of compound interest do the heavy lifting, and eventually you will retire a millionaire. Conventional wisdom treats compounding as this linear, instantly gratifying force that rewards you the moment you open a brokerage account. Retail investors are taught to obsess over asset allocation, chasing dividend yields, and picking the absolute perfect mix of index funds from day one. But what they do not tell you is that the magic they are selling relies on a time frame your brain cannot intuitively grasp. Society loves to sell the result of compounding, that parabolic hockey stick curve pointing to the moon, but it deliberately obscures the brutal duration of the flat line that precedes it. When you look at a 40-year compounding chart, the vertical axis is scaled to millions of dollars. Because of that, the first 7 to 10 years appear as a tiny, imperceptible little bump crawling along the bottom left corner. The human brain is simply not wired to understand exponential functions. We mistakenly expect a linear reward for our linear effort. We put in a month of hard work, we want a month of visible portfolio growth. Before we break down the brutal math of year 4 and why it breaks so many people, take a second to hit subscribe. I promise you, it is mathematically the best return on your time today. In our modern post-zero interest rate economy, financial media has totally commodified the idea of making your money work for you. Beginners are conditioned to expect their initial capital to act as an immediate second income stream, which sets up a massive disappointment. Wall Street brokerages generate their revenue through your engagement. Therefore, they have a massive financial incentive to encourage beginners to actively trade, constantly rebalance, and obsessively optimize portfolios that only have $10,000 in them. This creates the illusion that your investment strategy is the most important factor early on. You will see people agonizing over a fraction of a percent in expense ratios, or rotating sectors based on the morning news, thinking this is how wealth is built. Mathematically, all of that optimization is largely irrelevant at this stage. It is a distraction from the only metric that actually moves the needle when you are starting out. You are burning cognitive calories on the wrong side of the equation, trying to squeeze juice from a very dry lemon while ignoring the massive orchard sitting right behind you. We have to strip away the noise and look at what actually builds that initial capital. Here is the contrarian truth that nobody wants to put on a shiny motivational poster. Compounding is functionally a myth for the first $100,000. The first stage of wealth building is not a mathematical phenomenon. It is not about passive income, and it is certainly not about letting your money work for you. It is a brutal, unglamorous, manual labor process of generating positive cash flow. You are not an investor yet. You are a professional saver, playing defense against a world designed to separate you from your paycheck. The sooner you accept that the initial phase relies entirely on your own blood, sweat, and discipline, the faster you can cross the threshold where the math actually starts to help you. So let us look at the real numbers, because once you see the exact math of the trap, you will understand why you have been feeling so stuck. If you think saving $1,000 a month is the hard part, wait until you see what the market actually gives you back for that effort in year 1. To understand why the $100,000 wall breaks so many people, we have to deconstruct the math using realistic macroeconomic variables for the coming years. Let us set our target at $100,000 in net invested assets. We will assume a forward expected nominal market return of 7.5%, which tracks with the historical average of the S&P 500 when adjusted for slowing global growth. We also have to factor in sticky inflation. Let us call it a drag of 3%, giving us a real return of 4.5%. Finally, we will assume you are aggressively contributing $1,000 every single month, or $12,000 a year. On paper, this sounds like a foolproof plan. In reality, it is a psychological meat grinder. This early wealth accumulation phase is a trap, because the growth of your portfolio is mathematically eclipsed by your own manual savings. Let us look at year 1. You aggressively save $12,000. At our 7.5% return, assuming you contribute monthly, your investments generate roughly $450. Your total is $12,450. Over 96% of your net worth is your own sweat equity. The market provided a rounding error. Now fast forward to year 4. You have manually saved $48,000. You skipped vacations, you drove an old car. Your total portfolio value is roughly $55,000. The market yielded about $3,800 this year. You have sacrificed for 4 years, yet your annual market return is not even enough to cover 2 months of rent in a decent city. Life liabilities routinely outpace your portfolio yield at this stage. This is why you feel poor even when you are doing everything right. But let us look at the crossover math between the first 100,000 and the second 100,000 to see why quitting is the worst possible decision. At $1,000 a month and a 7.5% return, hitting the first 100,000 takes exactly 6.6 years. Of that total, nearly $80,000 is the principal you contributed. Only 21% of the total is interest earned. Now observe the journey from 100,000 to 200,000 using the exact same monthly contributions. The time required drops to just 4.8 years. The principal contributed to this second phase is only $57,000. The total interest earned balloons to over $76,000. Suddenly, interest represents 57% of the gain. The dynamic has entirely flipped in your favor. The undeniable conclusion here is that below $100,000, you are the engine. The market is just the cup holder. Attempting to deeply optimize portfolio yield when you only have $30,000 invested is a mathematical waste of time. Let me put it in perspective. If you spend hours researching and manage to squeeze a 2% improvement in returns on a $30,000 portfolio, you make an extra $600 a year. But if you spend those same hours upskilling and execute a 20% job hop on a $70,000 salary, you yield an extra $14,000 a year. Cash flow optimization is your only mathematical priority right now. Stop worrying about the perfect international exposure or dividend tax drag. Focus all your energy on shoveling coal into the furnace. Because once you understand this cash flow mandate, we have to tackle the psychological traps that are waiting to derail you. Most people do not quit when they are broke at zero. They actually quit when they have around $60,000 in the bank. If you ignore this next psychological hurdle, you will wipe out years of sacrifice in a single afternoon. Why do people mathematically sabotage themselves right around the $40,000 to $70,000 mark? The answer lies in behavioral economics and neurobiology. You are fighting millions of years of human evolution that demands immediate caloric and emotional reward for expended energy. The modern financial system does not provide that immediate reward, so your brain creates a crisis. We have to look at a psychophysical concept called the Weber-Fechner Law of financial perception. This law states that the perceived change in a stimulus is proportional to the original stimulus. In plain English, this means how you feel about your money is entirely relative to what you already have. And this creates a massive dopamine problem during the accumulation phase. Let us apply this law to your bank account. Going from $0 to $10,000 feels monumental. To your brain, it is an infinite percentage increase. You feel invincible. Going from 10,000 to 20,000 still feels amazing, a clean 100% increase. But going from 60,000 to 70,000 requires the exact same amount of manual labor, the exact same penny pinching, and the exact same time. But it only registers as a 16% increase to your net worth. Because the relative progress slows down so drastically, your brain registers this mathematical reality as a deceleration. It cuts off your dopamine supply, triggering intense feelings of futility and boredom. You are working just as hard, but the chemical reward in your brain has flatlined. This biological trick is responsible for more broken wealth accumulation plans than any stock market crash in history. Because of this dopamine drought, around year 3 or 4, the investor enters what we call the trough of sorrow. They have sacrificed their lifestyle, they have skipped the dinners, but they still do not feel rich. This is where hyperbolic discounting kicks in with a vengeance. Hyperbolic discounting is the cognitive bias where humans overwhelmingly prefer smaller, immediate rewards over much larger, delayed ones. The brain starts to rationalize the fatigue. You tell yourself, I have $50,000, but I'm not rich anyway. I might as well buy that $45,000 car so I can at least enjoy my daily commute. The moment you sign that financing paperwork, you reset the compounding math back to zero. You trade a temporary spike in dopamine for another 6 years of manual labor. You have to recognize this urge for what it is, a neurobiological response to boredom, not a sound financial decision. There is a second psychological trap here called the volatility mirage, which acts as a hidden penalty. Let us say you successfully fight off the urge to buy the car and you reach $60,000. Suddenly, a routine 10% market correction hits. In a week, you lose $6,000 on paper. That is 6 months of your blood and sweat wiped out instantly. The behavioral reaction to this is almost always capitulation. The investor stops their automated contributions, convinced that the system is rigged and they are just throwing money into a furnace. What they fail to realize is that during the accumulation phase, volatility is mathematically irrelevant. In fact, a down market means you are buying assets at a steep discount. Stopping your contributions during a pullback incurs a brutal sequence of returns penalty, permanently delaying the point where your compounding actually crosses over. You lock in the pain and miss the recovery. We are going to look at the exact protocol to bypass this psychological wall in just a second. But first, we have to fix the biggest leak in your system. To survive the long slog to 100,000, you must completely separate the manual labor of saving from the passive expectation of compounding. Enter Phase 1 of the Optimizer's protocol, the savings rate singularity. The rule here is simple. Ignore your investment returns entirely. Do not log into your brokerage to check the daily balance. Instead, track only your gross savings rate. Calculate your total saved divided by your gross income. To break the wall in under 5 years, your mathematical target needs to be 25% or higher. Stop researching ETFs and spend 100% of your optimization energy on increasing your income and slashing your fixed living costs. Now, you can build a massive spreadsheet to track this manually, but that is exactly why I built CashClass, the official Tom Talks Money web app. There are 0 sketchy bank logins required. You just upload your CSV statement directly into your browser. It is totally private. Click the link at the very top of the description to start your 14-day free trial on the web. And you also get access to the free Budgeting 101 course inside. Phase 2 of the protocol is the tranche gamification framework. To bypass that massive dopamine drop-off caused by the Weber-Fechner Law, you cannot set $100,000 as your primary goal. It is too far away. You have to break the journey into discrete, bite-sized mathematical tranches, optimizing for a completely different financial metric at each stage. Tranche 1 is from $0 to $25,000. This is your emergency buffer, and your only goal is liquid survival. Tranche 2 is from $25,000 to $50,000. This is the debt annihilation phase, where your goal is to have zero high-interest liabilities dragging down your cash flow. Tranche 3 is $50,000 to $75,000. This is the volatility tolerance phase, where your only goal is enduring your first market correction without touching the sell button. By changing the objective every 25 grand, you trick your brain into maintaining engagement and continuous dopamine. This is where conventional wisdom says you just keep grinding indefinitely. I am going to tell you to calculate the exact day you can stop trying so hard. Phase 3 is calculating your escape velocity, commonly known as coast fire. Calculate the age at which your first $100,000 will fully fund a traditional retirement, even if you never contribute another dime. If you hit this milestone at age 30 and never invest again, at age 65, you will have roughly $466,000 in actual purchasing power, using inflation-adjusted returns. That is equivalent to over 1.3 million in today nominal dollars. Knowing this mathematical flaw acts as a massive psychological anchor. You are no longer saving out of fear. You have technically bought your baseline freedom, and everything you do from this point forward is just lifestyle optimization. The pressure is entirely off your shoulders. Phase 4 is designed to prevent frugality fatigue. It is the 66% rule for windfalls. During the long slog, you are going to encounter sudden bursts of cash, a tax refund, an annual bonus, or unexpected side hustle income. When this happens, exactly 66% is immediately deployed into your investment portfolio. The remaining 34% must be spent on a guilt-free lifestyle enhancement. Go out to a nice dinner, upgrade your mattress, or book a weekend trip. This ratio mathematically guarantees that your net worth is moving forward aggressively while providing the immediate neurochemical reward your brain is screaming for. It sustains your momentum and prevents the kind of absolute burnout that leads people to drain their accounts on a luxury car lease. You have to feed the engine a little bit of premium fuel if you expect it to run redline for 6 straight years. If you do not grasp the physical reality of this transition, you are going to abandon your flight plan while you are still climbing. Building wealth is exactly like launching a space shuttle. A rocket burns roughly 80% of its total fuel capacity just trying to break through the Earth's atmosphere in the first few minutes of flight. It is violently shaking, fighting massive gravitational pull and atmospheric drag. But once that shuttle enters the vacuum of orbit, it requires almost zero fuel to travel at thousands of miles an hour. The first $100,000 is your atmospheric drag. You are burning massive amounts of caloric, emotional, and financial energy just to fight the gravity of your living expenses. It feels heavy and slow because it is heavy and slow. But once you break past that barrier, you are in orbit. The resistance disappears and momentum takes over. Think of it like push-starting a dead car on a perfectly flat road. You have your shoulder against the trunk, you are sweating, pushing with all your might, and the heavy machine is barely rolling at 3 miles an hour. It takes immense effort just to keep it moving. But right at $100,000, you finally pop the clutch. The engine catches, it turns over, and suddenly the car is driving itself. You just have to sit in the driver's seat and steer. Or think of your income as a fire hose and your net worth as a massive empty bucket. At the beginning, no matter how fast that high-pressure water sprays, the massive bucket still looks totally empty. People get frustrated, turn the hose off, and go buy smaller, instant gratification cups that fill up fast. You must keep the hose running until the water level is high enough to create its own internal pressure. This is exactly what Charlie Munger meant when he famously said that the first 100,000 is a total bitch, but you have to do it. He said he did not care if it meant walking everywhere and not eating anything that was not purchased with a coupon. You just have to find a way to get your hands on that initial capital. Once you have it, the rule of 72 takes over. At a historically average return, your money doubles roughly every 10 years. 100 grand becomes 200, then 400, then 800,000, with almost zero further effort on your part. If you want to be surrounded by people who deeply understand this math and hold you accountable during the slog, click the join button below to become one of the optimizers. It is our channel membership where you get priority comment replies and custom sketch badges to show your progress. The ultimate goal here is to reach the critical mass point. This mathematical crossover occurs when your annual portfolio yield officially exceeds your annual manual contributions. If you are investing $12,000 a year and earning a moderate return, this magical crossover happens precisely when your portfolio hits roughly $160,000. At that exact point on the timeline, your money is literally working harder and earning more than you are. The initial $100,000 mark is simply the psychological gateway to that mathematical inevitability. It is the hardest money you will ever make, but it is the only money that actually buys your freedom. Before you go, drop your current gross savings rate in the comments below for some peer review. Keep pushing the car, keep the hose running, and I will see you next time.